Hi, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar on uh, a very relevant, timely topic of getting India back to work. Uh, the background to this webinar coming on at a time that it has is that we've all experienced a pandemic which is unprecedented in our lifetimes. We haven't gone through harrowing times of the kind that we have experienced at all. We've just read about them, but this is the first time we are experiencing something like this as individuals, as also business houses and companies which run, various businesses. And the more we've been talking, I have in personal capacities been talking to different stakeholders, individuals and businessmen, business leaders, industry captains. One has been beginning to notice some kind of apprehension in a large number of minds, about the future, how it will unfold. We don't exactly know when the economic activity will bounce back. When it does, we fear that it may look different. And therefore, we kind of thought that we will look at a very diverse group of industry experts that you see on the panel today and see what they feel about this subject. And by the way, the industry panelists that we have chosen belong to industries which all of them have their backs to the wall. So they do not come from backgrounds which are not impacted by this crisis. So we thought maybe we could try and have a peep into the future and learn from the experiences these distinguished people have had in their own careers and in having built companies, having gone through crisis, and see what the businesses at large can learn from. So with that, I would once again welcome you all, and I think it's time that I briefly introduce the distinguished panel of speakers to you. We'll start with Subodh. Subodh, I think the brief backgrounds of all the individuals are mentioned on the flyer, but Subodh and Kiranji, these two people here on the panel, are living legends of the industry. They've turned companies around. They've, kind of led various companies. They've been chairman of several organizations, and they've made a difference to the way business has worked in India. So welcome, Subodh and Kiranji on the panel. We move on to Anil, who heads Schneider Electric. Again, a very distinguished personality, comes with a global experience, was working in the global team in Paris before he was moved to handle the promising market of India, has won several awards, and he has a lot of interesting stories to share. Ajay Bakaya is a hotelier, a distinguished hotelier at that, and who started small, who started, with a shared office, and today has 85 hotels across India and overseas. And not just that, he's now a part of a Paris-based chain called Louvre Hotels, which again has holdings going back to China, making them probably the second largest hospitality chain across the world. Again, an industry which has its back to the wall. And let's see what Ajay has to say and share with all of us. Ishtiaq Amjad comes again with a very versatile background, ranging from Indian Army at some point in time to having a senior position of Vice President Communications for India and Southeast Asia for Coca-Cola. He's also the President of Public Affairs Forum of India. And again, the reason why we have this panel with you, talking to you today, is we've had several conversations with these gentlemen, and they have been so inspiring to me personally, energizing to me. I thought they have stories which they could share with the industry. We will have Gautam join up a little later, and as he does, but I will still introduce him to you. Gautam is the CEO of PVR Cinemas, 845 screens spread across 71 cities in India and also overseas. And he has some very interesting thoughts which would be relevant to today's conversation. So coming back, let's start the webinar. And my opening question is to both Subodh and Kiranji. And this is that we are in the midst of an ongoing crisis. And we possibly are on the verge of a lockdown being lifted. I mean, how do you see, Subodh, first, and then we kind of, you can pass on to Kiran as to what's your general outlook and how do you see this playing out?
Well, morning everyone, and thank you, Neeraj, for this opportunity to share some thoughts. Let me come straight to the subject. Firstly, I think the business has been slowing down over the last 2 years, and this COVID-19 scenario has converted this into a real crisis situation. The economy, the GDP in 17 was about 7.7%, and last year 5% in 19. So the industry has been coping with a difficult period over the last 2 years, at least, if not earlier. Now, in this crisis situation, I think the question comes that what needs to be changed to make that business to go back to work. I would say that the drivers for business or the business depends on 2 or 3 very critical elements. The first and foremost is the resource base, which starts with entrepreneur, enterprise, capital, labor, infrastructure, raw material, equipment, etc. The second element would be the demand, because if customer is not there, there is no resource which can be utilized for converting into value add. The demand has to be defined with, in a sense, that what customer needs and its affordability. That's important to my mind. But these 2 factors are only essential factors, but even most important is the sentiment. And sentiment means basically how confident the consumer is to spend money, how confident is entrepreneur to invest in capacity, or etc. And unfortunately, this crisis has caused the sentiment to be at the lowest ebb, with 50 days plus of lockdown. And I think what is important is the narrative has to change. The current narrative is scary, but interpretation and perception is there are knee-jerk panic sort of actions and reactions, and causing more and more negative sentiment in the system. And therefore, I feel first and foremost important is not only for the government, but even for the industry is to convert this negative sentiment to at least neutral sentiment through communication. For example, we are getting all scary and fear, whether it's media, whether it is political leaders, talking about the number of COVID cases coming up. Now, to my mind, the message has to go that don't get scared by the numbers. Numbers will be there. We do more testing. There'll be more numbers. And therefore, the good news is that the health care system is adequately equipped and we'll be taking care of it. So this fear of at individual personal level needs to be addressed. And once that psych, and even industry leaders have to talk about it. I haven't heard many talking about, they've all been talking about open up and all that, but really to a communication package which changes or helps changing the narrative is what I think is required at this point of time. And whether industry will thereafter, and to my mind, without the sentiment correcting, the pace of revival would be slower. But if we can all talk about what positive things, what can be done and what has been done, hopefully the things will pick up a little faster. Let me leave it there. Let Kiran pick it up from there, and then we'll come back later whenever.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Neeraj. Thank you, Subodh. You've laid out the groundwork well for me to add some comments. But, with permission of all of you, let me step back a little bit into history. When I was growing up in the late 60s, mid 60s, we were importing a lot of food grain. And the joke around the world was that India lives from ship to zip, because the food grains came in by ship and then they were transported and distributed. And this made us, sort of made me feel small. I was young then, but made me feel, what is this? And today, of course, as we all know, in fact, for many years now, we have got overflowing granaries. Yes, there are many people in this country who are yet destitute and poor, who can't afford to buy. But the fact is that our agriculture production has just taken off, and today we export a lot of food grain. Fast forward a few years, and late 80s, India looked in deep trouble. 1991, we were on the verge of bankruptcy. We were, shipping gold out, literally selling the family silver, you might say, to make sure that we don't default. Deep trouble. Then the reforms came, 91 came, and suddenly in a few years, India was the flavor of the world. Everybody was toasting India as the bright new star, something to watch for. So, I think to me, just looking back, this shows the resilience of the country, that we go through difficulties, we come back out of it, and we're back on. And this is where I look at the present situation. As Subodh rightly said just now, yes, there is concern. This is a major epidemic. We yet don't have a cure or a vaccine. A lot of people are working on it. We should get there soon, hopefully. But just now, there is an epidemic around, and the numbers are large. The reaction has been strong and immediate. We bought a lot of time by enforcing a lockdown, and there may be views on that lockdown, but the fact is, we've got a lot of time bought by that because our numbers are rising, but not as fast as some of the other countries you might have seen. But I think the whole story of gloom and doom is much overdone. There is need for caution, there's need for care, there's need to be worried, we need to prepare ourselves. But look, this is not the first time we're going through a crisis. If I look at the health scenario alone, these figures are widely there, but doesn't strike us. 150,000 road deaths a year. 435,000 people die of tuberculosis in this country every year. These are diseases we have learned to live with. Things like tuberculosis, which also transmit, as does COVID. And we've learned to live with them. We take all the precautions. There are things that we do, the care that we take. But we know this is with us. It's going slowly. But till then, we just live with it. Polio we have conquered, but these continue. And yet, there is some sense that just now we are suddenly overtaken by something which we can't handle. We can. And I want to echo what Subodh said. The sentiment needs to change. And I see a lot of that happening. One of the things I want to share with you, and many of you who are on this webinar may be participants in this, so I'm sharing it only on your behalf, you might say. I see tremendous ferment in the startup industry. I see young people doing exciting new things, creating new forms of PPEs, which we were not making, trying to do tests to figure out how to find out whether somebody may be positive or no. We have the Arogya Setu app developed right here in this country, which is phenomenal. I mean, there are concerns about it, yes, some justified. But the fact is that app is a phenomenal way to find out what's happening. Many of you know that a group of IIT alumni, and there are 50,000 of them, have got together and they helped to create this new temporary hospital in Mumbai, in a temporary shelter in Nehru Center, where the beds are made out of cardboard. They got them immediately, got them up in a few days, and the whole center is going. So the ferment that's happening in the country is tremendous. And this gives me great hope. There are actions happening, the young people with bright ideas. There are companies that are converting from production of something to something else which is needed. And I think in this atmosphere, we need to get back. Yes, the lockdown has been severe. There have been some concerns. Maybe some things could have been better planned and better organized. We're now getting back to work. Hopefully from tomorrow, we'll see some easing of the lockdown in all those areas where there's no severe crisis. And the containment zones will be much more limited. But I think the country is set to get back to work. The atmosphere needs to change. And as Subodh rightly said, we need to communicate this positivity, which I guess most of us feel, but is not going across. We are swamped by TV channels and newspaper headlines that every day talk of nothing but the increasing figures. And yes, they're there, but that's not all that there is. And we will get over it. We need to get back and begin production again, begin sentiment turning positive again and create the demand, some of which exists, and people get back to work, it'll be great. So just those few opening comments, and thank you once again. Thank you, Neeraj. If there's time at the end, I might add something.
Thank you so much, Subodhji and Kiranji. I think those were really wonderful words that you've said. I think you've summarized, if I kind of connect the dots and take a common thread out of what both of you said, is that yes, there is a problem. We need to recognize, we need to exercise all caution that may be necessary, but not all is lost. And the one basic thing that is coming out of your talk is that we need to have a positive outlook, we need to have positivity, we need to have hope, we need to have optimism, not all is lost. And we have in the past come out of crisis. Historically, we've seen countries emerge stronger out after crisis, companies emerge stronger out of after crisis, human beings emerge stronger after the crisis they have gone through. So thank you very much. We now will then move on to certain operating issues. Let me come back straight to Ajay Bakaya now. And Ajay, the question to you is that you work in an industry, you're a hotelier, you have all your hotels closed at the moment. What is your biggest dilemma? And what is the monkey that you must get off your back immediately?
Thank you, Neeraj. Neeraj, to put it in perspective, we are in ICU and on oxygen, but we are ready to fly. 20 of our 85 odd hotels are still operating, and half a dozen of them operating with good numbers, largely catering to self-isolation, catering to medical caregivers, catering to doctors. I strongly feel that adversity of this nature, the bigger the adversity, the bigger the collective good or the feeling of collective positive energy. Adversity brings out the best in us as a team. The hotel industry has been one of the worst hit. The recovery is going to be slow, but we see it happening. We had lockdown 1, which was anticipated and quite welcome. We have lockdown 2, which we tolerated. We had lockdown 3, which was a major frustration. And I hope lockdown 4 is a bit more liberal and we can actually go around and do our work. I don't believe you can lock down a nation indefinitely or lock down a people. It's impossible. We need to get out there. The healthy people out there need to kickstart the economy, kickstart our businesses, and get back to being to normal. Our biggest challenge in the industry today, the big bugbear or the monkey on the back, is how do we handle the social challenge of people? Our biggest asset in the industry is people. Our biggest cost in the business is people. And unlike the developed nations or the Western nations where the state supports you if you lose your job, we have a large number of people at the bottom of the pyramid who have to earn today to feed themselves today or this week or this month. And if we let those people go, we are faced with a huge problem of a person not being able to support himself or a family. So it's a huge social dilemma. Now, if business goes from 100 to 40, people can't carry on in the same way, and you've got to cut your people costs somewhere. So we've been working on this very, very hard over the last couple of months and saying, what can we do? What can we do? And the end result in our case, and we're talking about 12,000 odd people, is that the bottom end of the pyramid, make sure that they don't lose their jobs. And you can look at salary cuts and stuff like that, and we brought in those. We have talked to our people. Very important in this scenario that your company has had a culture of transparent, free communication. And we sat with our people, we said to them, guys, this is the scenario, tell us what to do. And I'm really, really, really happy that the teams came together and we had zero problems on doing what we had to do in terms of salary cuts, etc., and leave without pay and all those things. The team came along and said, fine, we are good. So at the bottom end of the pyramid, we are holding on to all our jobs. At the top end of the pyramid, we are either looking at deeper cuts or perhaps in time to come, if business in some places doesn't revive in 3 months, 6 months, a year, we are possibly looking at some layoffs, but with as much of sensitivity as is possible. So in the people business context of India, I think our biggest responsibility really is to make sure that we don't disrupt too many lives. Business will come back to normal. We will always need our people. And we want to make sure that they're there when we need them. We don't create another migrant scenario when I need my people, they're 200 miles away. Thanks, Neeraj.
Thank you very much, Ajay. I think this is most appropriate to inject at this point in time. I like your words that we are on ICU, but ready to fly. I think we can learn from this spirit that you're displaying, finding opportunities in adversities and still maintaining a human heart, being soft on people, retaining them, downsizing is the very last option. But making collective sacrifices on salary cuts at certain higher levels, and protecting jobs at the bottom end of the pyramid, like you mentioned. Fantastic. I think this kind of brings us to another interesting question, which flows from what you just said. And this is now addressed to first Anil, and then we'll hop across to Ajay, Ishtiaq. And if by then Gautam joins in, I'll pose this question to him as well. It is said that when fishermen cannot go to sea, they repair their nets. What has been the case with you, Anil, and Schneider Electric?
Yeah, thank you, Neeraj. Good morning, everybody, on this webinar. And I wish and I hope all of you are keeping yourself safe and your ecosystem safe, following all those advisories which we have to follow as organization as well as individuals. I think I will build on what was said by Subodh, Kiran, and Ajay, and more taking that into fruition. But before that, I think the topic being back to work, I think as what has been explained by Subodh and Kiran and Ajay, I think the biggest thing which we all have to now believe in is in ourselves. It's our mindset. I think the next game, whatever has been played for now 3 months, the next part of the game will be won based on our mindset, our behavior, and how we take actions of believing that any crisis like this brings in probably much more opportunities than what it has brought. And that goes with that we have a strong belief in our teams that first, future is not cancelled. There will be future, and probably brighter than that. And the second, humans have not given up. I think this is the way forward. We are looking at ourselves going forward and taking our businesses very strongly. Now, when we look at the business also, no doubt, some of these, many of us have never seen this kind of challenges and crisis in the industry, in our career path, or even before that. But there is always a way forward to look at how you take the things when you are leading an industry, when you are showing a responsibility and have a responsibility of millions of people every day living on the actions you take. There are 3 things which are very important at this moment, at which we have to reflect as leaders, as individuals, as managers, or as citizens of this country. And this happens every time a crisis like this or a bad thing happens. There is always that 3 questions we have to ask ourselves. That whether this situation or this present situation can define us in future like this, or can it destroy us, or can we let it to bring us new strength in us with which we can move on with a very strong resolutions in the future. I think we'll all agree, especially in the industry which is we are in, that we have no choice but we have to keep on going, picking up the strength from here and then move on. Coming back to what you were saying, Neeraj, that what we have been doing at this time, it is a time while we as a Schneider Electric, we have been operating with our policies for work from home for almost now 3.5 years. We have these policies as our normal policy. So it was very quick for us to shift to work from home. And what we have done, that while we were doing this, we also created a lot of work from home kits, which we could also then, give it to a lot of our customers, a lot of our partners, especially those IT industries and big IT giants, data centers. So their teams can also quickly shift onto that. So in other words, the way to go forward is in whatever we are industry, whatever business we are in, whatever kind of entrepreneurs we are running or as individual, we have to continue seeing that how and where I can apply more and more technology, more and more digital. And I want to correlate that with the present situation. The countries have been locked down because when we are a global organization, we learned from China, which was going into lockdown very fast and coming out very fast, and now coming up very fast. I think their markets are coming back. I think what was very important for us to see that there are 3 things which kept the nations going on. The electricity, the energy part of it, the digital, and the telecom. I think It is not only the nations have to now accelerate their spending on this infrastructure, it is in our entrepreneurs, in our businesses, in our own individual life. We have to see that how we quickly correct this balance and go into that. And I think this is where comes the next phase of it, that when we are now coming back into operation with these things, as Kiranji was saying, I think when we look at all these things, there's a lot of, fear created. And it is time, because if we look at all the statistics, we consider that while it was very important to take all the decisions, to be ready, to be prepared for, all those things which we have to face it. But now, when we look at all the statistics, the challenge which we have been facing or in front of us is not bigger than what, normal comorbidities kind of cases comes in the countries or in the nations or in the typical geographies. So we have to keep on preparing on this. And on our part, I think we consider, and it was touched by earlier speakers as well, that bringing the customer back to the counter, bringing the demand back into the cycle, it whole confidence upstream and downstream has to be created by industry. It's not only that government will announce stimulus packages, that people will start, coming back and start spending that the way we want to spend it. It is our team. So we have to give them the confidence. We have to share some of the best practices which we are following. We have to probably, all these, our MSME sector, which is backbone of even large corporates like us, we have to ensure that they come up also very strongly, sharing up best practices for which we have larger probably resources, how we can share with them. I just want to leave the floor with one example. When we dispatch any equipment from our distribution center, people are fearing whether I should touch it or not, whether they will be very much protected or not, whether all the precautions have been taken or not, whether I could be getting impacted or not. For that, we have come out with a SOP, which is not for our operation, but which is for our supply chain. And we have shared with our whole ecosystem of partners, distributors, panel builders, system integrators, suppliers. Guys, this is what we are following. And you should start copying this so that we create a positivity into the whole ecosystem to come back strongly. And I'm sure that at this moment, one of the other things which all of us has to look from the operations point of view, some of the things Ajay mentioned it, but I'll say that this is the time when we have taken a lot of tactical actions to save our operations, probably in a shorter time, 3 months, 6 months kind of thing. But I think in those tactical actions which we are taking, the new norm will define, which can become very strategical, which can become our normal way of doing it. And all those savings can come in and all. And this is where even the diversification of our portfolios, even diversification of businesses, typical examples, all those ancillaries which were manufacturing automotive. And in fact, we have been participating also, providing some experiences coming from France. So some of these, automotive ancillaries, how they can make and contribute to ventilators, respirators, quick kits for hospitals and all. I think every one of us who has to look that how am I going to diversify my operations so that I can remain, very balanced successfully as and when this kind of event happen, and it happens, and it is probably one of the worst we are facing out of now. But overall, I think we should all be believing in future is not cancelled, and we are going to come out of this. We are probably all going to come out of this with strength, and that's the time we have to now work on to see that how we move on to the normal operations going forward.
Thank you so much, Anil. I think if I get you right, and I would summarize you saying, first and foremost, believe in yourself. Yes, there is a setback to all of us in these trying times, but we have to get past that. And in a crisis, it's wonderful to hear that you're talking about MSMEs, you're talking about your supply chain being supported with SOPs and best practices which can be driven down, forward-looking organizations such as yourself. You're also being very forward-looking when you say that you like, your service providers and channel partners and what have you, to start looking at their synergies which can be honed to diversify in something that could be their core competence. But right now it is probably catering to only the electrical industry, but if it could be synergized and used for the healthcare or other segments. So wonderful thoughts that we might spring back to, circle back to you if we have something more relevant and you could contribute to that. But let me just move over to Ishtiaq, who's the VP Communications for Coca-Cola. And Ishtiaq, my question to you is that when we say there might be a new normal, are we at the same time suggesting that the old normal might not be a new abnormal? Which means that will this crisis leave some permanent changes in the consumer behaviors? What's your view on this?
So thank you, Neeraj. I think we've had a very, very profound discussion so far. There's very good foundation on which I can just build some of my arguments. Let's just look at this as one of the watershed movement in our history. Let's not call it a crisis or whatever. It is one of the watershed movements in our history, and we've had multiple, good, bad, and ugly. And if we really go back in history, we will see that in each of those watershed movements, it has resulted into change. Now, when we say the new normal, that is the change. It is for the human race to decide what that change will be. And if you go back by the historical data and historical evidence, in each of those so-called crises, we have turned the new normal into an absolutely new opportunity for the human race. Just go back, I mean, in the introduction, you talked about 134 years of Coca-Cola's existence. We have seen quite a few of them. Let's think about the Spanish flu. After the Spanish flu, after the Great Depression, after the World War II, after the Asian flu, after the Hong Kong flu, after the financial crisis, each of those occasions, the global economy actually recovered in a V shape. Each one of them. So was the case with Coca-Cola. Our businesses recovered in V shape in each of those crises. After the World War II, when we started the Marshall Plan of rebuilding the Europe, that is when the real global new world order came into play. That's when we saw the emergence of so-called the global multinational companies across the world. So coming back to your question of what is the new normal or is it the new abnormal, what this has done essentially is that this pandemic has thrown open some very fundamental questions to the human race. And I think these were very pertinent questions. Just look at the modern medical science. For the last 100 years, after the Alexander Fleming's discovery of the penicillin, the majority of the modern medical science has actually hinged itself on the antibiotic drug or the remedies that we get out of that, the entire surgery, all of that. We knew, I mean, if you go back to what Bill Gates said just 5 years back, there were a number of those studies, a number of those conversations that happened. We knew that viral infection could be the biggest pandemic that the world could probably look at. The reason why we did not do enough medical research for this is because it was not commercially viable. Today, as we speak, and just think of the vintage of this crisis, just about 4 or 5 months. It's not that it has happened many, many years back. Many of those crises that I have referred to have lasted for, if you look at the Great Depression, almost lasted for a decade. So we are into this crisis for just about 4 to 5 months. And what has happened in those 4 or 5 months? We've got about 150 new vaccine research going on across the world. There are over 1,700 trials of vaccines going on as we speak right now. There are about clinical trials of second and third stage of 13 vaccines happening as we speak right now. And not all of them are happening only in one part of the world. It is across the world. People who would compete with their blood as corporations are coming together in collaborations to find a solution. If you look at India, for example, just take a step back. The entire exposure of the underbelly of our migrant labor's crisis is a great opportunity for India to really relook at our economy. We've had millions and millions of people immigrate from the rural areas to the urban centers for probably what they call prosperity. Or was it really prosperity or just survival? Because the conditions in which they are going back, in just about a crisis of 3 to 4 months, the trust deficit that they have for the larger world, all of these questions are actually creating a scenario where we can reset and relook and actually go forward in a far more concerted manner than we've ever done before. Kiranji is there on the panel. Look at the data consumptions in the rural India in last 1 month. It has surpassed the total data consumption of the urban centers. It has almost doubled in just 1 month's time. Now let's ask this question, do we need talent to come to Delhi, Gurgaon, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, or can we take technology where the talent is? We are looking at labor reforms. Now, what is the role of, say, labor trade unions in this point in time? Subodh has been the president of CII. What is the role of CII? The CII's role is to be the voice of reason of the industry to the government and vice versa. The role of CIIs and the industry forum is to be a collective voice of the individual industry. Is that not the role of the labor trade unions? Have they played that role? Have we allowed them to play that role? When we have the mass exodus of immigrant laborers happening from urban centers to the rural areas. But these are some of those questions which actually stares at us and give us great opportunity as a nation to really march forward in a far more inclusive and far more sustainable manner. I will end with a very, very interesting learning in just what happened in just 4 months. The journey of COVID-19 has actually started in one province of China. And it became global pandemic on 15th or whatever, 14th or 15th of March when the WHO declared that. And this journey has been that of denial for the rest of the world. It happened in Wuhan, it will not happen to anybody else, and we are all fine. Then it resulted into a shock. Oh, it has happened to everybody. Everybody just confined themselves through lockdowns one way or the other. And there are different nations which has actually reacted to this in a very different manner. Then came the realism. We are, I think, going through the phase of realism that yes, this is here to stay. This is the new normal as you described this. How do we deal with it? And what will this lead to is resilience, which is what the human race is best at. We have seen the recovery in the eastern and southeastern parts of the world, in China and Southeast Asia. The recovery has been phenomenal from January to today. There are countries which are getting into a worse situation. There are countries which are getting better. I'll give you an example of Germany and Sweden, or Spain or Sweden. Sweden decided to go for a herd immunity. They have fertility of about 10 to 12%, which is not very different from Italy. Now, how do you justify these two nations? One which is completely locked down, the other which decided to go for the herd immunity. So there's a lot that we can learn, and there's a lot that we will invest our mind and our resources into. But I, as individual, and we as a company, are absolutely confident that the change that we will see post-COVID will be for better rather than the worse. So I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Ishtiaq. I think what you say is so interesting. The one thought you shared is that, look, Coca-Cola is a 134, 35-year-old company, so you've kind of gotten past the various crises that we've been historically talking about in all these enlightened times of coronavirus. And you come out and risen like a phoenix, not just Coca-Cola, but in general the economy. So that gives us hope. The other thing that you've talked about is, our thinking out of the box in these times of crisis, which kind of resonates, and this has been said to us by the other speakers as well. So thank you very much, and we might just swing back to you if the opportunity is there. Let me just go back to Ajay once again, and I welcome you, Gautam. You came in a little late, and we've already introduced you to the participants. So I'll come back to you. I mean, there's a question which goes first to Ajay and then to you, which is that what shifts in customer or consumer behavior do you now anticipate for hotel guests, and what is your preparedness, Ajay? And then finally to Gautam, to the cinema guests, and what is your preparedness there?
Thanks, Neeraj. Well, while we are preparing for a different guest behavior, we are teaching our people to smile through a mask. We've been teaching them the last few years to smile on the telephone and to make sure that that smile and that positivity is communicated by voice. Now we got to teach people how to smile through a mask. Really important. Body language, the eyes, the positivity that you generate, saying, "You're welcome in my home." Our philosophy has always been that a guest in a hotel, and I tell that to all our associates, a guest in a hotel, if you treat him like a guest in your home, you'll never have a problem. On the customer side, what we are trying to do now is engage the customer using all technology available well before he walks into the hotel. So if Neeraj goes to the website and starts making a reservation, there'll be a pop-up that says, how can we curate a stay for you? You may want to meet people, you may not want to meet people. You may want a particular kind of meal that I can organize for you before you come in. So I eliminate that interaction at that point of time. You may want me to change your sheets and your pillow slips and the towels every day, or you might say, look, I don't do that at home, so I'm really not fussed about it. If I'm staying for 3 days, I'm okay if you tidy up stuff after I'm gone. So from a consumer side, I think the critical part for hotels, and this is not limited to fancy hotels or luxury hotels, it's any hotel, is to engage with the customer in a dialogue at the reservation stage and at the pre-arrival stage. So we know exactly what a person wants, and we try as best as possible to curate that stay. I think the guest is, by and large, if you were to generalize, the guest is looking at less contact. So we will see people walking past reception rather than walking across or walking to reception. There will be more and more of checking-ins and payments on your telephone. We won't be presenting bills. We won't be presenting menus in the form that we've done in the past. We've already put out videos on the website which show you what we are doing behind the scenes. Actually, what we're doing behind the scenes in terms of what's happening in terms of deep cleaning of the kitchen. How are we looking after employees when they are coming in terms of thermoscanners, in terms of foot-operated pedal hand sanitizers, etc., etc., etc. So you can actually see on my website, and if you go to a particular hotel, on the hotel website, specific to the hotel, as to what's happening behind the scenes to make that stay that much safer. I think the key word here is safety, 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 safety. That's what a guest wants to see. I also believe that at the end of the day, we are social. We are not robots. We are not machines. We are humans. Humans want to interact with humans. So give it a couple of months, a few months, and yes, we will follow all the necessary precautions that one needs to follow, and we would hope that our guests follow all those precautions also. But you will have people wanting to go into a restaurant and have somebody sitting at the next table, maybe not chat with them, but at least have a chance to smile at the person. The guest will not see buffets as you've seen them for years and years and years and years. Buffets are out for at least the next 6 months, if not longer, because you wouldn't want to serve yourself with a spoon that somebody else is touching. So I think it'll be a lot more trade or pre-plated service coming into you. You will see plexiglass partitions between tables. You'll see plexiglass partitions on tables. You'll see plexiglass partitions between yourself and a reception if you are going to a reception. Those are some of the changes. But I think at the end of the day, you will see certain protective, preventive things. Like after 9/11, you saw the door frame metal detector. You saw the baggage scanning machines. You will, once the authorities wake up and come current on what is required, see things that are needed by law and certain things that hotels practice to make you feel more comfortable. We do the car undercarriage scanning at the moment with a mirror, and everybody says, what are you looking for? The guy doesn't even know what he's looking for, but it's a feel-good factor of sorts to most people. So there'll be more feel-good stuff coming in, and I think the customer probably has more options and will probably spend that much more time looking at his screen and figuring out things than he's done in the past. But I do, and there won't be those pretty girls opening lobby doors for you and all those smiles, and that'll reduce a little. But I think eventually, give it 6 months, give it a year, things would get back to normal. My personal assessment is that by the winter of next year, we would be a lot more into normal, rather than the old or the new normal. Thanks, Neeraj.
Thank you so much, Ajay. I think this really resonates well again. And we've talked about two things here, that safety, at least for a while, we can't really project it too far down, would be the new normal, whether we call it the new normal or the normal. But that's something which you've factored in already. But the more important thing that you're saying is that, humans are social by nature, and this will kind of bring them back on the social track. I think this sets the stage, Gautam, now for you to take on. I think the next piece in the social environment is entertainment. And who better than you to take us through? So I am rolling two questions into one together for you. One is, how do you see customer engagement and customer preferences changing? And more importantly, with 845 cinema screens across 71 cities closed down, how are you maintaining positivity? You have your backs to the wall. So give us a sense of how you're holding up, and how is it playing out in your minds?
So all I can say is, like everyone said, these are really trying and but we call them interesting times. In fact, last evening we celebrated the end of lockdown 3.0 on a Zoom party, and we got Mika Singh and Ajay Bijli singing to us. So we had a good gala time for an hour. So all I can say is these are fantastic opportunities, I would say, where you look back, because in normal lives, in normal businesses, we never get this time where everything stops. And each one of us have lost money individually in stock markets, in real estate, across the board, and so has companies. But you feel a lot better simply because everyone around you has lost money. So technically, you just feel that this is the time to sort of relook at all that you have done so far, all that you would be doing going forward. And hence I say this is a great opportunity where the water level per se has fallen, and it's fallen for everyone. Yes, we are very, very severely impacted. We were the first ones to close down, perhaps, and surely enough, we would be the last ones to open up. No business or entrepreneur ever plans for any phase of business where the revenues read as zero. So we have that. Having said that, this is also an opportunity where we are looking at every part of the value chain and seeing how things would change. Like Amjad had mentioned, Ajay has mentioned, the protocols largely remains the same. While the use of technology will go up, all of that would happen. The one fact that I feel we all will need to handle it differently is that whether it's the consumption of hotels or hospitality or cinemas, the consumer wants to sort of be eased out. He wants to feel easy when he gets into the spaces. He doesn't want to feel nervous. Yeah, first time, like Ajay said, or for a couple of visits, there will be a certain amount of tentativeness, but overall people will ease out, because we believe that what they see and what they experience will really change their experience. So when we wrote down our SOPs, we said there's fundamental things that we have to do to our business, which is all use of technology, UV, sanitization processes, stuff that perhaps even consumers may not even get to see. Then we'll need to change a lot of our SOPs from people intensive care and hospitality things to more machine led. Having said that, so that's another part of change that we'll need to do. For the consumer, when we came to that, we said, let's go with this whole fundamental of seeing is believing. Can we make him to see some real big changes? And as long as we can do that, he will be rest assured that eventually these are all safe places, and we have to move on in life. Everyone has stressed upon the fact that we are social animals. We have to eventually get out of our homes. We need to interact with each other, and that doesn't change. And I think a lot of people many a times have written this industry off, entertainment, saying, this is the end of the industry, piracy, DVDs, IPL. I must tell you, when cricket came in, people said, "Oh God, who's going to watch movies now? All Saturday, Sunday." This nobody, even within the film industry, people stopped releasing films. But that too didn't survive. A couple of months down the line, the next IPL, we were back in business. So all I can say is, consumers are resilient. They're very clear on what they want, and so are we. So technically, there is a lot of work. There is a lot of tuning up. But that's what businesses are meant for. Technically, this is a period where survival of the fittest, and a lot of people decode this by saying, do you have enough cash in hand? Do you have enough, processes and systems and skill set? And I personally believe it's all about the team spirit. And, yesterday we had a town hall meeting, and believe me, the kind of confidence my 14,000 people across the board gave me was just phenomenal. In the sense, they all said that we are with you. Please see how we can sort of hold ourselves together. It's a matter of 60 days and we will come back. They all understood that they will need to put in their extra bit. They will need to redefine. And what was so brilliant was, each one of our cinema managers, and they are like kids who were between the age of 26 to 32. And they all said, we are reskilling ourselves. I've gone ahead and done online courses. I have learned something new. I am talking to my team most regularly. So I think once you've made an organization which is strong, where you can connect with your people. And these are not mere words. These are people, who have coming forward and say, sir, you can cut my salary more by 10%, and let's see if we can stride over this phase. And that, I think, is really the spirit of that organization that we are talking about. If as a leader, you feel that you are heading a team which is with you, I think you feel so much stronger. And that's what I think PVR as an organization is really believing, that these are tough times, but when we get back, we will get back in style, and we'll get back roaring back.
All the best, Gautam. I think these are very, very positive words coming from a person who obviously has his backs to the wall. And I can only say that leaders inspire people, and you're saying that your people inspire you to move forward. I think it is so true. And it's the people, I think Ajay said it earlier, and it's people centricity which takes the organizations forward. And crisis teaches us to reskill ourselves off of our own. They also teach our employees to come back and say, hey, we can contribute to, and we can make a collective sacrifice.
We sometimes underestimate, a lot of our middle management and lower management. If you can stir their, what should I say, the bond with the organization, what they can do for you, I don't think anyone else can possibly do that. And once you galvanize that force within your organization, as a leader, you feel just so much more stronger. There is perhaps, and somebody can just sort of come back and say, why do you feel so positive? And why do you feel that you will be able to stride through? And perhaps there is no logical explanation, but it's just that when there is a counter attack and you feel that you're standing with 10,000 odd people all backing you genuinely, you just genuinely feel very, very strong, and you feel you can bounce back so much easier.
Well, pearls of wisdom is all that I can say, Gautam, and really inspired, I feel personally, with such talk. I belong to an industry which also has its back to the wall, but very, very inspiring words. On that note, let me reach out to ANUJ SEHGAL, who runs the investment fund in Hong Kong. And he's been there 20 years now, very successful. He runs an investment fund by the name of Manas Asian Equities Value Fund. He's just written a blog recently on the exact same subject. And let's listen into what he has to say, piggybacking on what you said, that it's a social need and people will throng the cinema halls. He's in Hong Kong. Let me just take him on and ask him one question, please. I mean, if you can, Satish is helping me behind the back. And if you could take Anuj SEHGAL from Hong Kong on live, please. Hi, Anuj, can you hear me? Anuj, can you hear us?
Yes, Neeraj, I can hear you.
Satish, if you could take him on video as well, if possible, but I'll nonetheless ask my question to you, Anuj. Anuj, you've been in Hong Kong for 20 years and you've been through experiences of SARS and now this, and Hong Kong, I guess, ran into Corona much earlier than, we did here in India, and you are an Indian, so you understand the dynamics and the apprehension that are going on here. So India will probably be at a stage in August where Hong Kong is today, right? So tell us, what is your sense of what's going on in Hong Kong, and whether you have any experience of, since you work with China so closely and the other Southeast Asian countries, what's your sense of where we seem to be headed? If you were to help us crystal gaze what 3 months down the line would look like.
Sure. Thanks, Neeraj, and good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, as you said, Neeraj, Hong Kong got into this whole coronavirus situation along with China somewhere around the 3rd week of January. So we've been sort of managing this for the last 3.5 months. And I have to say that Hong Kong has done a remarkable job in managing the situation. We only have 1,053 cases with 4 deaths so far. And this has been done without any stringent lockdown. Of course, they shut down schools, they shut down cinema halls, they shut down public places, parks, sports facilities, bars and pubs. But restaurants were functioning. They put limits on 4 people at a table with proper social distancing measures, and the government encouraged work from home. And then, of course, the people played a big role because they went through the experience of SARS in 2003. So that really helped. And people followed all the instructions, wearing masks, hand hygiene, etc. And the government did a great job in terms of contact tracing, testing, and quarantining. But the point I want to make is that even though there was no stringent lockdown, in the months of late January, February, March, and almost to a large extent half of April, people were not going out because they were scared, and that resulted in retail sales in Hong Kong down about 35% in the first quarter. But as I speak now, we've had maybe 0 to low single-digit cases, daily cases over the last 3 weeks. And you can see that people are out and about. Now restaurants are full. The government has relaxed the limit of 4 people at a table to 8. Sports facilities are open, cinema halls are open, parks are full. And people are genuinely coming back to sort of live their normal lives. Of course, people are still cautious. They're following all the basic precautions. But my point is that people are out and about to live their daily lives. The other thing I would say is sharing some examples and data points from China, which again has done a remarkable job in terms of how they manage the situation. So if you look at vehicle sales in China, in the first quarter they were down 42%, and within that, February was down 79%, March was down 43%. But in April, vehicle sales in China were up 4.4%. Now you can, attribute that to, some pent-up demand, some push of stimulus from the government, maybe people's preference for owning a car. But the fact is, vehicle sales were up in the month of April. Similarly, if you look at Shanghai Disneyland, they opened the park after 3 months on the 11th of May. And when they opened the booking of for tickets, all the tickets, so they're running at 1/3 capacity, and all the tickets were snapped up within minutes. And as I see today, all tickets are booked till the 18th of May. And then finally, I've also been seeing some data points where, most luxury brands in China have seen their April sales actually being up month over month. So the point I want to share is that, as this situation is being managed and people sort of get out of this whole coronavirus situation, people want to live their lives, and people don't want to, people can't stop living their lives because of the unknown future. Of course, there is the risk of the second wave and whatnot, but people ultimately want to go out and about to live their lives. And I think if this is representative of what is happening in this part of the world, and of course we need to see whether this data is sustainable, but if this is what it is, and if India manages to control the situation as they have done so far, then I see no reason why things should begin to bounce back, as you said, as we go into months of July and August. So yeah, I think that's what I would share from my side.
Let me ask you one last question, Anuj. Have you tried going out, and what's been your experience in the recent times? Have you booked a table for yourself? And
yeah, so so it's funny, Neeraj, you asked this. I mean, last Sunday was Mother's Day, and we tried to make a reservation for Mother's Day, and I had to call 3 restaurants before I could get a reservation. All 3 restaurants were full. So again, to the point that people are coming back, they are willing to spend, they want to live their lives and move on. And move on with their lives, and it's just the fair psychosis.
Thank you so much, Anuj, for sharing this as to what Ajay Bakaya and Gautam should expect a couple of months down the line. There was people flocking cinema halls and flocking hotels. Let's hope that happens. Thank you very much. That brings me to the very last question, which I'll request Kiranji to take up. We've seen that hardships can shape up the destinies of countries, and we've historically seen that, sir. Take the case of Japan, for example, or Germany, as to how they kind of resurrected themselves to the preeminent positions in technology and infrastructure build-up after the World War II. I mean, would you feel that this could be a tipping point for India? This could be India's moment if we get our act right. Set aside the fiscal benefits that have been thrown in by the government and whether or not they will get lost in translation. We're not getting into that debate. We'll keep that for some other time. But would and potentially could, a hardship of this nature jostle us out and expect more out of India, with particularly, the world looking to explore options other than China in so many different ways. So what are your views on that, sir?
I think absolutely, Neeraj. There's no question that this is a unique and special opportunity for India. It's a crisis, and we've got to see how best to, in fact, take advantage of that crisis. Some things are already underway. Some of the reforms, I hope there'll be more, but I think the one on agriculture announced yesterday was substantial, long awaited, and will help us. But to your specific question, yes, this is a big opportunity because the world has, for frankly, some time now, been concerned about putting too many of their eggs in the China basket. People have invested heavily there, their factories there, the supply chains all depend tremendously on China, and they've been looking to diversify. This has given them even more impetus to look elsewhere. Many countries are looking specifically at what they can do. The Japanese have set up a $2 billion fund, which is intended to bring industry which is invested in China back into Japan. But I don't see any reason why we can't work with them and with other countries to see whether India can't give them the option they're looking for. The real option they're looking for is an alternative to China. Either, as we say in business, a China plus one strategy, or even a China replacement strategy. And India is uniquely placed. We have talent, we have a huge domestic market, and if we have the willingness and show the ability to attract people and make life easier in terms of our processes and systems, I don't see any reason why we should not have a huge opportunity. Some signs of that are there, but we have competition and we need to be aware of that. Countries like Vietnam, Philippines, even Bangladesh are capturing some of that. And we've got to move fast and quick in our reform process to make things easier for people to come here, make logistics easier and get going. Critical part of that is to show that, we are back to business. To me, the lockdown, and I think one of our panelists put it very well, phase 1 was probably very necessary. Phase 2 was a pain. Phase 3, I don't know, question marks. Now it's time to get out of that mode and begin to get life back to normal in terms of moving things, moving goods, getting our internal supply chain together and getting even the global supply chain in. If we begin to do this, I do think that we have a very special opportunity. People recognize the talent in India. They see the innovation capabilities. And I think you will see many people coming here, not just for costs, but for the uniqueness we offer them in terms of market, talent, and innovation.
Excellent, sir. I mean, I think these are very succinctly put, and again, pearls of wisdom. If all of us, the youngsters in business, the business community here, the political climate here, can begin to be sensitized with what is being said here, I think we have a great opportunity. I was actually talking to a dear friend of mine who heads, he's I think on the, as a participant, he's participating here today, Kamaljeet Java, who's the managing director and CEO of Daikin India. He's also on their board on the global panel. And he's also, I think, the assistant chairman, vice chairman, sorry, of the Delhi chapter of CII. So he was sharing the other day with me that they're, he's privy to certain discussions, Japanese delegations and the way the Japanese are thinking. They have 15,000 companies, which are large companies inside of Japan. And hardly a fraction of those have made significant investments in India. And a fairly large number of them with happy experiences. Of course, there have been certain poor experiences as well. But Maruti Suzuki being one, Daikin itself being another example of how these investments in India have worked. So there is, he was saying, absolutely renewed interest, both from the point of view of engagement by CII and the government of India with the international community. The Big Five are looking at India very seriously in the current climate, and Japan itself, which is looking at variety of options to scale up their operations in India. So with that thought, I think we like to bring a closure to today's conversation. We're already in the 65th minute of our conversation. We can go on and on with the kind of panel we have here. I would have loved to circle back to Subodh for sure. But let me end this by saying that the one thing I gathered in this conversation with all of you and learned from you is that the first prerequisite is to be positive, create a positive voice that turns into a chorus amongst the business fraternity. And if we can make it resonate and make it into an anthem in the times we are going through, I think we may have an amazing future as a country. We've got to grab the opportunity, and it is entirely up to us to kind of create that vibration and resonation. On that note, I'd like to thank all of you, the distinguished panel here, for being with us. But it's time that we threw open this session to question and answer. There are a lot of questions pouring in on the chat box. And may I first take the first question that comes to us from Sandeep Das, who's the CEO of various companies. He's been a czar in the telecom field, a known name. He's headed companies like Hutchison Max, Maxis Group. I've been on the board of various companies. So Sandeep, may I reach out to you, and you have put some questions. I mean, what's your question and to whom?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Sandeep, we can hear you.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Neeraj, and it has been a most inspiring conversation. A couple of people on the panel are known to me, and it's always a delight to hear them. I want to make one or two very quick comments, and then I'll probably post my question with your permission.
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay. So firstly, we talked about the fear of this COVID situation, and I feel that the presence of the fact that we do not have a cure and inoculation, and the fact that it is contagious is creating a fear. And most people are not worried about bad news, but they're worried about uncertainty. And I think it's the uncertainty that is usually killing. Now that the fact that we have had a massive reset and reboot across individuals and communities, which is unparalleled and something that Ishtiaq also spoke about, it's very interesting to see that all the panelists are talking about the fact that adversity has created a great amount of resilience amongst us and a great amount of innovation, ability to innovate. My view would be that given that the current lockdown has brought forward digitization and has created a new kind of efficiency, I would like, I know the answer, but I would like the panelists to give their view on what kind of skills do they think that people will need to acquire to adapt and stay relevant under what is the new normal. Because, there are often people have spoken about the fact that what will happen when artificial intelligence comes in. But now this digital work efficiency and all has come in. It is already there and people are experiencing it and have seen benefits. So are there views that the panelists have about new skills that the workforce will need to acquire to stay relevant? It would be very interesting to know what are their views. Thank you.
So is this addressed to any specific speaker, or would you like any panel?
Well, all of them are extremely erudite and competent to answer it. I have a personal bias because he's a friend. If he wants to answer this, I would be happy. But I'm not being picky. I'm just being biased because I know Kiran so well.
So Kiran, over to you, I think.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sandeep. Sandeep, as you said, you know the answer well enough. I think this is a unique opportunity both for the country and for individuals. For the country, because the world is moving towards digital and beyond, as you said, artificial intelligence. And for India, it's a unique opportunity because we have the base skills which are very high, a large number, very large absolute number of people skilled in the whole digital space. We've got to spread this much more because, as all our panelists said, the time of individual contact, and I think Gautam mentioned this, and so did Ajay, is increasing. You now get much more things done which are machine mediated, so to say. And so digital is going to be the way to stay in touch with customers and for people to make contact with each other. So the more people get digitally familiar, the more opportunities there are. But I see another huge opportunity, and Sandeep knows this, he's done much of that. The work from home has once again reinforced the fact that you can work remotely. When I see all these hundreds of migrants, thousands of them walking back home and feel sad about it, I think it's also an opportunity for us. Can we take work back to where their homes are? Instead of getting people to work, can we take work to home? Can people work from homes, not just in cities, not just in Gurgaon, Noida, Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, but can they work from their village and get work from done there? So this combination of digital and the work from home, which we have learned to set our systems to, I think presents a very unique opportunity for India to be really a global leader in this, and we can well set the path and create, in fact, a new way of development. This would also answer and take care of something which I'm very glad Ishtiaq raised, the whole issue of the concern about the new economic model, where people feel at stake. These migrants have gone away because they didn't feel at home in the urban areas. They just lived here for work. Can we give them more stake in the system by letting them work from where they are? And I think that will transform the country and transform the way we look at things.
Very useful words these. Thank you so much, Sandeep, for posing that question. And thank you so much, Kiranji, for bringing that out so succinctly. We move on to the next question.
Neeraj, just I want to compliment what has been said by Kiranji, just once again. I think this is also an opportunity for India to accelerate its Industry 4.0. This debate has been on the, in various industry forums, but the move which have been done in the last, 4 years, this debate has been there, are very less compared to when we talk of big industrialized nations, and we are talking of getting those opportunities into reality, which are coming with all those manufacturing moving on. But I think this is where probably all the leaders, decision makers need to skill up themselves also to see what Industry 4.0 can do in terms of productivity, efficiency, and quality to take our local to the global. I think in addition to work from home, technology, digital, I think this whole change will also make a very accelerated move forward for us to get this opportunity much faster on the ground.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we move on to the next question, which is there on the chat box. And I'd like Navneet Singh, Chairman and Managing Director, Corn Ferry India, to please come online and ask his question to the panelist of his choice. Are we able to reach out to Navneet Singh? Okay, so let me move on. I think we have some technical issues reaching out to Navneet Singh. Let me go on to KJ Java, Managing Director and CEO of Daikin India, has a question for one of the panelists. So let's see what he has to say. Are we able to reach out to Java, or are we experiencing some turbulence here? Oh, I can see his name pop up. Hi, Kamaljeet, how are you doing?
Thank you very much, Neeraj, for getting me on this.
Can you please?
Like, it is really very, very heartening to see many of the panelists and very, very interesting. So,
Thank you so much.
I just want to add, for the interest of my own thoughts of, last 40 years I've spent with the corporate, and I have seen many, many adversities. And I think the biggest adversity I saw was when I joined Daikin about 10 years back. And in last 10 years, we have seen and new things which I have learned. I would like to share that with you. And I think that reinforces my mind again, after listening to Kiran, after listening to Subodh, that, every, and also I think Gautam, each of the panelists, really a lot of benefits to all people who have joined here. My question was that, like a Coke story also was given by Amjad, that how much time does it take, to take this V-shaped recovery normally? I mean, because we have seen, this is, of course, the biggest human tragedy. The people say that, this is the biggest human tragedy after World War II. So while I am always optimistic, I am agreeing to, whatever the various panelists have said, but how much is the experience? And also if viewers can also get some inputs from Mr. Subodh Bhargava, that what is that in this kind of situation an MNC CEOs should do? I raised my hand in the first meeting to Japan, and they were very, very kind, and they have been showing a lot of resilience, and they also see this as an advantage India. And many thoughts are there, the Chinese companies investment which they have made for 15,000, what you already covered. I think probably at various levels the discussions are very, very active. But just to get to know that, how much time does it take to take the V-shaped recovery?
Ishtiaq, can you first take this, because from what I could, the audio was not very consistent, but from what I can see from Java's question, I think he seeks an answer from you because of the 35 years old history and the fact that you've gone through various curves, and you mentioned that after every crisis or pandemic, you actually shut back up. So is there some kind of data which supports how sharp the V curve rise could be? And then we will go on to Subodh ji for what I think, Mr. Java asked.
If there's one person who could hazard a guess how this recovery will take place, I think we would not be sitting in this panel at all. So I think, what I did talk about is the historical evidence of what has happened with every major crisis that the human race has gone through, number one. And what we have seen in last 4-5 months in different parts of the world. I'll just look at two very interesting data. Wuhan went through a complete lockdown. It opened up when there was a consistent days of zero infection in Wuhan. Italy opened up when there was still about 1,000 infections every day. These two countries opened up at two different stages because they realized that the need of opening up. And we all know that the fatality in Italy has been far graver and far bigger than what had happened in any parts of the Asian countries. But if you look at the anecdotal evidence of both these recoveries, they have been to a certain extent V-shaped. At least in the FMCG or the grocery category that we are part of. So there is a very, very clear trend that we are watching. We are seeing that the demand across the board in various countries has still remained reasonably warm. If it is not as it was pre-COVID, and it is not expected to be. But in spite of the fact that there is a complete shift of away from home consumption to at-home consumption, demand for various categories, including our own, stays reasonably robust. So that is what probably gives us the hope and the optimism that as and when we get back to the phase 4, which I was talking about, from denial to shock to realism to resilience, as we move into the phase of resilience, as we are slowly and gradually moving towards, I think we should be back with some sort of hopefully a V-shaped recovery.
Thank you. Subodh, would you like to take on from here, because that's what Java expects?
You're on mute, sir.
In the lighter vein, Mr. Java, I think MNC CEOs have to take decisions where they are sitting and not take it from Atlanta or Tokyo. But to come back to the real issue, to my mind, it's very important to really recognize what India has at the ground level. And I would say today we have talked about demand generation and what have you. I think there's an existing demand from rural India. The agricultural output has been 4% higher this year than last year. Coming monsoon and coming crop expectations is significant. And I'm sure for a product like Daikin's air conditioner, rural market will give a new dimension altogether, possibility with the likely prosperity there. Secondly, there is a digital play available for the demand generation also. And that is, I'll give you one example. I'm associated with a startup for making bicycles. Now they have over last 3-4 weeks put on the computer, on the digital platform, the aggregates which go into making the bicycle, different models of handles, different seats and different frames. And they are giving option to the customer to customize their bicycle the way they want, the way color, etc., etc. And the customer is able to select and configure its own customized bike to go from there to 3 days time. They get the bicycle ready, available, and it can be delivered. If it's not in a red zone, they get the bicycle also. But I think these are some of the things which in market demand has been done. And lastly, I would say, as far as the people is concerned, Indian industry has been shy of training its own people, whether it is at the workman level or it is at the managerial level. We want ready-made talent, experienced talent. And I think this is where this work has to change tomorrow. The corporate India has to start training its own people. Even this migrant labor issue, to my mind, if we were to focus on local young men to train the task which I need them to do, the skill building, which has been a long talked about subject, but not really implemented that effectively. So I would say that it's not only any role for MNC CEOs. I think all CEOs need to look at existing demand, innovation, and the food packaging industry, Nestle, Godrej, Amul, etc. I believe in last 2 months have introduced 45 new products to suit their current market requirements. And I think that's being, again, a ear to the ground, ear to the customer, has given them the quicker growth of possibility. Is that, I don't know if I answered the question, it's a bit of a rambling, but that's it.
No, thank you very much. I think you have definitely, I can conclude that, the rural area and the skill development, I am happy to share with you that, Daikin has taken a lead and in creating a skill factory and a job factory, apart from the other 2 factories what we have. We call it a skill factory. We have been also chosen along with Suzuki and also Toyota, and we have a Japanese Institute of Manufacturing Excellence. It is not only our own people. In Nimrana, we have created the gym facility, which actually trains for 5S and other many Japanese processes, the Kaizen and all in our, gym factory. So we also have 30 centers of excellence across the country, in places like Vijayawada and Hyderabad, and also which we are going to increase it to more than 100 in next time to come. So our plans are on these lines. It is just that I did not want to miss the opportunity when I saw you. So okay. I'll come and meet you once the lockdown opens and explain to you that what we have done and how we have converted these adversities into advantage. In 2010, when I landed in Japan, the biggest tsunami I saw. And the next year was probably Thailand flood, and next year was some fire in the factory. So, we have a lot of resilience. And after hearing today, you and Kiran and many other speakers, the way Gautam has shown his bullishness, I think I salute all of you from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your kind words.
Thank you, Neeraj. I think it has been a wonderful session, and just at the right time. I again say that. No?
Thank you so much, Mr. Java. I mean, we are short on time. We are reaching our outer boundary. So we're going to take the last two questions. This one is from Anurag Chandra, who is from the leadership team of Danfoss in India. And his question, I believe, is to Mr. Ajay Bakaya. So can we take Anurag Chandra, please? So Satish, while you're taking on Anurag and he comes, yeah, he's there. So I just want to say that one last question we'll take from Partho Chakrabarti, Managing Director, Faber-Castell. He's also been a part of the Pepsi leadership team for a fairly long time. So that's the last question we'll take after Anurag. Anurag, over to you, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. First and foremost, thank you to all the panelists. If there is one bottom line, that has been a positivity. And as Java said, that is the most needed thing in this hour. And we thank you for that. And thank you, Neeraj, for organizing it. And my question is for Ajay Bakaya. Maybe I'm trying to represent all those guys for whom hotel is the second home, or maybe first home for some of them. Okay. How would you assure the guests that they would be safe in the hotels? And there are two parts to these questions. One is, I'm not talking about what you see, I'm talking of behind the scene things. Number two is, while especially for the youngsters, when they come and try to stay in any hotel, in the COVID days, there are a lot of influencers behind them. It could be wife, it could be parents, whether to stay or not to stay, not only assuring your customer, but also the influencers of your customer.
Anurag, thank you very much. Very, very relevant question in today's day. Very, very relevant. You know, to begin with, we have actual physical videos of what we are doing in the hotel. So the influencers can look at them. The customer can look at them himself well before he gets to the hotel. At the stage of even thinking about going to a hotel, saying, "What are you guys doing for my safety?" And say, "Here it is." And nothing more than a minute and a half, you know, so you can go through it carefully as to what's happening behind the scenes. How are we making sure that our employees are properly sanitized when they come in, are properly sanitized before and after they have their meals, are wearing the right masks and the right gloves if necessary behind the scenes. What are we doing in our kitchens? What are we doing in our laundries, etc., etc., etc. So there's a video available there for people to see if they want to watch it. And the other thing is that we've spent the last 2 months on training and training and training and training and training all our people into the finer sensitivities of what a guest is going to want. And as I said a little earlier, we're curating guest stays. We're asking our customers individually what they would want or what they would not want, and make sure we're delivering more and more of that. So the answer is yes, you will see extremely high levels of hygiene and sanitization, from door handles to wall surfaces to public toilets to elevators, to the reception desk, or the absence of the reception desk, to what's happening when you walk into a restaurant, to what happens when you walk into a room. So there's a lot of that, but it's been put on video. It's there for people to watch, and it's there for people to watch every single hotel. So that's my answer. And really the bigger answer is we do deeply care. You're a guest walking into our home, and we'll make sure that you are extremely safe.
Thank you so much, both Anurag and Ajay. And I move on to the last question from Partho Chakrabarti, Managing Director, Faber-Castell, India.
Hi, everyone. My question is to Mr. Karnik. You know, with lockdown 4, it pretty much means lockdown is getting lifted. Okay, and I believe all of us as leaders have a role in trying to make this part easy to navigate. The first challenge which we're going to face as we come out of lockdown, come into lockdown 4, as we gradually open up, is reviving demand to anyway that sluggish level it was in March before everything went down. And initially what we're looking at is what is really happening is demand has collapsed. Even if they opened everything up, it's not anywhere near what it was, except maybe for grocery and items like that. Now, I think we all believe that demand can be created only if there's optimism. Optimism is the greatest driver of demand. Unfortunately, and the supplier of bad news, I mean, there is so much incentive in them because the demand for bad news is very high. Okay. And most of us, I mean, maybe because we live every day and die only once, but whatever it is, there's a huge demand for bad news, which leads to the people supplying bad news, and that tends to pull us down. I'll give you an example. I think today or yesterday I saw a headline: India crosses China in COVID-19 infections. I believe a completely irrelevant data. It was there day before yesterday at the rate of 3.8% of the number of tests getting infected. Today also it's the same rate of percentage, and the percentage recovering is 33%. Nothing has changed. But here, slam, India worse than China in COVID, the founder of COVID, And these things tend to pull you down, You're not going to derive demand through this. Now, I believe, and what can we do? I mean, really as leaders, because there are about 20 or 30 sources of all this thing to lift the whole spirit around. I think a bit of what we're doing is here, but all this gets negated when, headlines come out like this. And the question which I'm asking is, what can we do as leaders to really make the lifting of the lockdown easier, to bring in some optimism? The moment the people get on the streets, we are all going to die. There are going to be dead bodies falling as they're locked down. What can we do to remove this? Because there's no basis for all this. And the people who are creating this news are also within our ecosystem and social circle. So I believe that what can we do to influence that? That's one question. And similarly, the other thing which is happening as lockdown lifts up is this whole PM versus CM versus DM versus the local policeman. I mean, the Prime Minister saying you can open your shop, but the Chief Minister may also be saying you can open your shop. You can even get the DM to say that you open your shop, but the police down the road is not letting you open your shop. And there's a massive communication challenge. Again, something I believe we as leaders can make it easy for the people who need to open the shop and create demand. So that's my question. What can we do to help this easing of the lockdown, coming out of the lockdown?
Partha, good question. I think this is the crux of what we've been talking about. Subodh ji started with this, a change in sentiment. And sentiment is about what is being communicated, what is being received, and what is the general atmosphere, the climate, you might say, in the country. And you're right, there is this sort of gloom and doom thing. It started possibly with communication from the government. And, maybe for good reason, a sense of almost creating panic. Stay in your house, put a Lakshman Rekha, don't go outside your door. I mean, this did create a sense as if something terrible is going to get out and grab us. It is one more disease. It is dangerous. It is something to take care of. But as I said earlier, it is one more disease. I don't stop crossing the road because there are accidents. I don't stop going out because there are TB germs around. So I think this is one more on which you take due care and precaution. But that sense has been created. You're right. And now, how do you reverse it? I think that's the true challenge today. And to your question, I think, Partha, it's a difficult thing to answer because you're right. It's always man bites dog, that's news. So it's something exceptional, something negative that always makes the headlines. But, I think they're tired of it. But more importantly, the point you made about what can we do, I think it's for leaders to speak up much more. They've been quiet. And again, I refer to what Subodh said. He says that we need more industry leaders to speak and more active on this. And, wherever it's possible, each of us, with whatever influence we have, both individually and through industry associations or bodies, professional bodies, to make the sense of saying, look, there is a problem. We've got to take caution and care. Let's see what we can do. But there is no sense of gloom and doom. There is optimism. The good part is there's suppressed demand. And once it opens, I think you see a V-shaped curve, as more than one panelist has said. I'm waiting for Gautam to put houseful signs outside his cinema theaters. And, for Ajay to tell us, sorry, I don't have a room in my hotel. I think those days will come. But more importantly, we have to create the atmosphere within which the demand perks up. And as you rightly said, yes, there is an economic crisis. There is some problems on the economy, but it is more a problem of consumers being worried and not willing to spend. It is the conserve your cash mode, which is correct for small startups at this point of time. But I think we have got to see how to get the consumer to open his purse strings, or her purse strings more importantly. It will begin to happen, but the responsibility to me lies as much with each one of us to speak up, to make our sense known, to say, look, there is a problem, but there's a sense of optimism. We're going to get out of this soon, and let's get back to living and getting back to getting things going. And in this, the other thing which I would say is we've got to remove this stigma and concern which localizes. You put it very well, as the bottom, the policeman at the bottom of the chain. So the communication has to flow down properly to say, look, we've got to open up, we've got to get things going, let's move on. And there may be a new normal, as people say, but we get back to normal. So it's for each one of us to make these communications as powerfully and strongly as we can and change the mood and sentiment in the country.
Thank you so much, Kiranji. I think, since this was the last question we took, I would have loved to summarize, but I think with what you've said, there is nothing left for me to summarize this than to bring in this element that you took the torch in your hand and said, look, we have to take the lead in creating positivity around us. Self-belief at this point in time is the most important trait. If we can spread this positivity, I think it might just be the beginning of the surge that we will see in this V-shaped curve that we're talking about. So thank you very much, all the panelists, all the guest speakers. Also, I would like to thank, we've had at the peak nearly 500 people who were listening in. So thank you very much, and not just from all across the country. We've had participants from China, from Hong Kong, from Dubai, from Europe. And thank you all for this wonderful, I have personally learned a lot in these past 90 minutes. And if we could not, unfortunately, take all the questions that have been thrown, our chat box is full of questions. So we put up a slide here. There's a mail ID, info@truefrost.com, if you could please note. If there are any genuine questions you'd like us to still get back to you, we'll reach out to the panelists for whom they are meant for, and we will try and see if we can get back to you by way of an answer. So you can please shoot them into us at info@truefrost.com, and we will try and see if we can funnel back answers from our elite panelists here. Thank you very much. And with that, I would say, let's see happier times together. We'll have enough time to celebrate in cinemas and hotels and do buffets and whatnot and say cheers to good times soon enough. Thank you so much.
Sure.